So we're going to watch this video. This video is from Necrit. So we watched a video the other day of his that was just talking about kind of the map of Riot MMO. There's a Twitch link in the chat for you guys if you guys want to go show this guy some love. I have already. I subbed to him. Great content thus far. I just stumbled across this guy, but so far his video has been banging, and he's kind of a funny dude. I love the fact that he recorded a video in like his PJs. I thought that was hilarious. So we're going to check out this video. This is talking about races and classes of Riot's MMO coming up according to the lore. So again, nothing here is really set in stone or definitive, you know, information. This is just speculation, I think, for the most part. But nonetheless, to learn a little bit more about it, because I've never played League, so I don't know what the lore is like, the classes, the you know, the different factions and etc. So at the end of the day, this will give us some insight as to what's coming down the pipe. If you guys didn't know, Riot is coming out with an MMO. There's no timeline for it or launch date or anything in that regard. So this is all kind of up in the air until we start seeing official posts, but I want to learn more. I want to learn more about the lore, more about the classes, more about the races, more about just the factions and how it all is synergied together. Okay, so let's go ahead and start watching this bad boy.
Well, I'm back. Last time we had a look at the world of Riot's MMO, and we talked about how the overall world design has been done for a few years now. If you have no idea what League's...
I'm just gonna stop it. He's wearing the same outfit and I love it. I wonder if he recorded this on the same day. There's no way. He must have. He must have, dude. DJ Pants. I love this guy, man. He's got such a good vibe about him. All right. Start from the beginning. Watch this.
Well,
he's wearing the same outfit as the last one. He must have recorded both on the same day.
Riot's MMO, and we talked about how the overall world design has been done for a few years now. If you have no idea what League's universe is about, I would recommend watching that one first. But now that we learned about the basics, we can dive into the other big MMO topic: the playable races and classes. When it comes to the races, just like the world, they are pretty much done. Over the years, the lore fleshed out the races of Runeterra, and now they each have their own unique story. In fact, at this point, it feels like we know Riot will not make up a brand new race. Of course, they could always theoretically do it, but I seriously doubt they would. Because that would be like forcing a new race into the world of Lord of the Rings.
If they got enough,
feel off among all the already.
Like if they got enough lore to go through, enough classes, there's no point bringing anything else. Just work with what you have and then like address how much that gives you.
Established rules. I strongly doubt you want to put a bunny person
What's up, Seb?
Aragorn. With that
we decided to watch the second one here today.
Because the lore will allow Riot to make up new races and make them feel natural. I'll show you their clever system in just a moment. But for now, just know that yes, we already know the races of this world. So the question is not going to be what races Riot is going to make up. The question is going to be, from the races that already exist, which ones will be playable? And perhaps more importantly, how will they be playable? You see, a few years back I released a similar video where we talked about the classes and the races together with TB Skyen. And today, I would not recommend you watch that video. Back then, I was still clinging onto the idea that faction-based MMOs were a good idea. It worked for WoW, and it worked for my guilty pleasure, WildStar. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that merely a year later, the idea of faction-based MMOs would crumble to dust. That's because factions have a massive flaw. Besides the fact that PvP is almost guaranteed to be one-sided. I mean, who would want to play for the losing side? Especially if there is no compensation. Classic WoW is a perfect proof of that.
This is so bad. So what's funny, it won't even show. I don't even think it shows. Yeah. So I played on Bigglesworth in WoW Classic, and towards kind of the end of phase 1 in TBC, I decided to move off of it and go to Benediction. To give you an idea, I jumped over to Benediction when they had a player base on Alliance side of about 8,000 players. So from the time in which I transferred over there it's now skyrocketed up to 25K. Now, I do think that they closed some servers and everything that probably created more influx, but it's so funny, the dynamic of like how poorly balanced these servers are and how much of an issue it is, and them needing to find a way to make it more engaging for both sides of the faction, or both sides of factions, right? Like,
not to mention New World. But also, if you split everyone into two sides, you are splitting up your player base. And that is almost never a good idea. You simply don't want to prevent people from playing together. The reason why in the past it worked for WoW is because Blizzard heavily played into the faction pride. People were proud to fight for the Horde or the Alliance. But even back then, it really wasn't perfect. And then people started min-maxing the game and they realized that factions didn't matter. And that's where Riot has the edge. You may know that League of Legends has a lot of different
I like where this is going, though.
Where they all act independently.
I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like factions created such a division on just the way the game would be able to flow. Like, there's just so much division on what ways they're able to integrate their different systems, whether it be like PvP, raiding, world environments, whatever. If you just have more of like a messy environment with multiple different like little clans and whatnot, like, I'm really interested to see what Riot's going to do with their classes and their races.
Independently, and they all have unique relationships with their neighbors. Because of this, forcing faction alliances into this world would ruin the already established lore. So PvP factions are most likely not going to be a thing. However, despite that, League absolutely has faction pride. People love it when a new Shuriman champion is announced, because people love that place. And people love it when the new champion is not Ionian, because goddamn we have too many Ionians. Nearly every League of Legends player has a favorite region. And you bet when the MMO comes out, people will want to play for that region. And this is where the brilliance of Riot's world kicks in. You see, the fundamental lore of League of Legends is based around the idea that anyone can be from any region. After an event the story refers to as the westward migration, races mixed up
anyone
all around
can
the
be
world.
from any region.
So it's not like there is a furry region where you can only see furries. There are definitely regions where you can see more furries, but this world doesn't have exclusives. This means that when you're picking up what you want to play, besides just picking a race and a class combination, I strongly suggest Riot also allows people to pick their origin, with the origin being the starting region. Without a system like this, you would force all human champions to be, for example, Noxian. And that is simply not how this world works. So, I've been rambling about how this world works for quite a while. So now, let's actually dive into all the races that exist in this universe. Spoiler alert, League doesn't have too many different races, because it's focusing on depth over variety. Of course, as it is with any RPG, there is the human race. But
it's really cool because like the way that it's being presented is that this is a total sandbox environment, you know, like you said, it's not an area just for the humans, an area just for that. Like, sure, you might see like some of the core race being there, like the furry area and whatnot, but it's not exclusive to. So it means that it's going to be a lot more sandbox like, and it's going to be interesting on how that's going to flow into like PvP and groups and guilds. And
it would be cool if the humans varied depending on their origins. For example,
I want to test
if
this
you pick
so
a human
bad.
from the Freljord, they would be an Iceborn and they would have extra frost resistance. A Demacian could have a bit more magic resistance, Ionians could have a bit more nature resistance, Shuriman's heat resistance, and so on. I think it's going to be crucial for Riot to preserve the feeling of every origin feeling at least slightly different. This is an RPG after all, and despite the fact that balancing is usually a big issue, I strongly believe these RPG elements have to be preserved. But if Riot is afraid of people min-maxing the game from the very beginning, focusing on the origin stat with the most value, Riot can always do the safe thing and only give each origin different customization. In the Freljord, people tend to be more pale with lush beards and Nordic tattoos all over their bodies. Shurimans have the
Hell, you
classic
say,
dreadlock
eh?
style. People from Bilgewater have the pirate crew tattoos. Piltovans are your fancy mustache people, and Ionians have the wild untamed hair and beards. So even without special origin,
Dude, I'm like 3 of these people, man. Pale, random mustache, crazy hair, and neck beard. I'm like a hybrid.
stats, I do believe these unique character customizations would enhance the region pride too. So that's what humans would be about. Pretty versatile and nothing too special in an RPG world. So now let's have a look at the more unique races. After humans, the second most spread out race are the Vastaya. As we mentioned in the last video, the Vastaya are a race that came to be after humans started mating with magical animals. But the thing is, depending on where they are from, there are loads of different kinds of Vastaya. From cat boys to fox girls to lizard girls. In fact, here's a family tree of all the Vastayan tribes, and even this doesn't cover all of them. And this is where Riot can pull off something genius. As I said, this world already has set rules. So it would be very difficult to introduce a brand new race into this universe. However, it is going to be very easy to just make up a new Vastayan tribe. So I propose that Riot doesn't make the Vastaya as a playable race overall, but instead it would be cool if Riot let the specific tribes to be playable races.
You feel like that would be like too much if it goes that direction, rather than like having the core versus like the branch outs? Like, man, that is some crazy customization as to what that would be. I think the only thing with that is like if, let's say, you know, the Chaira or however you say versus the Shimon, let's say, probably said them both wrong. Like, what if something again down the road is super min maxi for one versus the next, and then you feel like you get to that point and you're kind of like, well, dang, you know, like it could go that direction because people inevitably agree with it or not agree with it. People start to get min maxi with games. It's just the way that it is. I mean, crap, even WoW has issues with like races and their abilities when it comes to endgame rating, and even M+. Like, you see people changing their race of their character just to get an advantage for the week of M+. So it'd be interesting to see what benefits that they would give them. Maybe something a little less mundane, and maybe if it was like, oh, you know, this entire tribe gets higher frost resist, but this guy might get an extra dance or something. Something simplistic like that. I don't know.
This would leave the door open for them to introduce new playable races later down the line. If they cross off all the Vastaya at once, they kinda shoot themselves in the foot. But I know, here I go mumbling about how the world works again. So let's have a look at some of the specific tribes. When I say Vastaya, most people think of Ari. She comes from the Vasani,
Totally.
that look like foxes. Although her tribe is mostly gone, the lore can justify new members to be found, so they can be playable. The Kilash tribe comes from the jungles between Shurima and Ishtal. These lion-like people are known for hunting dangerous beasts, and they take great pride in trophy collecting. It's the average mount collector.
Okay, hold on. Let's talk for a second about these sweet loafers he's got going on. Check this out.
The Shimon tribe
Look
are
at those.
monkey-like people from Ionia. While their older members are very wise, their younger members can be very goofy. The Otrani come from Mount Targon, resembling the classic goat people. Their hobbies are taking care of the Stellarcorns. The Lowthland tribe are Ionians who resemble bird people. This tribe likes to combine the art of dancing with lethal assassinations. The
Mana style
are something close to lizards, though they do have the ability to shapeshift. Out of all of the other tribes, these are the closest to their pure blood ancestors. And we also technically have the Marai, the fish people whom I doubt are going to be playable. Imagine modeling boots for them. Now, these were the more pure blood tribes, but there are many...
Rather than boots, it's just a pillowcase.
many more Vastaya who don't fit any of these. For example, Set has an Ionian Vastayan mother and a Noxian human father, so he doesn't really have a tribe. Long story short, the Vastaya are an incredibly versatile race and Riot can use them in a million different ways. This is where they can really go wild. But that's it for the Vastaya. So now, let's have a look at the third most popular race.
There's so much depth to this
These are the classic
world.
RPG tiny people. In League of Legends, people either adore them or hate them. There is no in-between. Kinda like those guys. But not those guys, everyone hates them. There is no doubt in my mind
mage,
that
dude.
Yordles will be playable.
Ouch.
Even though they have an interesting catch. You see, unlike all the other races on Runeterra, Yordles are immortal. They are essentially modes of magic that come from a hidden magical realm known as Bandle City. And because they are made of magical essence, when they die, we don't really know what happens. But we assume they return to the Bandle City and there they respawn. With that said, the lore suggests that maybe Yordles can die, but they just can't die of old age. But let's ignore that, that's a massive rabbit hole. So, you know, when it comes to gameplay, at least corpse running is going to make sense for them. Now, because Yordles are immortal, in most cases they are always happy and cheerful. Even their home realm is very colorful because of that. But then there is also Vex, a Yordo champion who has recently been added into League of Legends, who gives Yordles an interesting perspective. You see, unlike all the other Yordles, Vex hates living. She hates the bright colors and the cheerfulness. You know, it's the average League player. So Vex is constantly in deep depression.
Who's triggered right now? Who's triggered? Who's triggered? You triggered? You triggered? I'm not triggered because I don't play League. But there's someone that just got triggered there.
Depression and agony. All she wishes for is to leave this world, but she can't, because Yordles can't die. Anyway, just like all the other races, Yordles can be found all around Runeterra. There is Poppy in Demacia, Kled in Noxus, Kennen in Ionia, Rumble in Shurima, and so on. But now, so far we have only covered the races which I'm pretty sure will launch with the MMO. The humans, the Vastaya and the Yordles are the core of this world. So now we are diving into the races that still exist in this universe. But it's going to be up to Riot if they make them playable. First of all, there are the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are different from the Vastaya because they don't have magical ancestors.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say about this, okay? I am trying to digest all of these different dialects of characters, different wings of the core, races, etc. You want to know something, okay? Okay, I would go to Blockbuster on a Friday night, okay, with a good friend. My mom would drive me there. We'd walk on into the Blockbuster and I'd be looking for a game. You know how long that would take me? Hours, 2-3 hours guaranteed. We would get out, grab our things, we'd go home, we'd set it up, we'd put in the disc into whatever we're playing, and then it would be like, choose character name. You want to know how long that took me? A long fucking time, okay? I'm looking at this, and I can only imagine how long this is going to make me, to decide what the hell I want to play, whether it be the race, let alone just the name, all the different, like, dialects of their classes and etc. Like, holy crap, man. It's, depending on how they do this, it's gonna be that's gonna be a whole day of stream just choosing my character.
Are just a standalone race. Originally, the Minotaurs controlled the mountains south of Noxus, but because Noxus is Noxus, soon they absorbed the Minotaurs into their empire. With that said, some Minotaurs fled the tyranny of Noxus and they joined the other regions. A great example is Kryl, the Minotaur fighting in the elite armies of Demacia. And yes, the Minotaurs also have the stereotypical sexy female version in this universe, so they can easily be turned into a playable race. Next, in Bilgewater, there is an incredible amount of weird fishy people. A lot of these could be really cool playable races when Bilgewater gets
weird
its
fishy
expansion.
people.
Although modeling helmets for a hammerhead shark is going to be interesting. We also can't forget about the trolls. Previously I showed you the ice trolls, but there are also the sand trolls. And here's an interesting fact for League veterans. We have never seen a sand troll, but because of Ezreal's adventures, we know they exist. They should be around Icathia, which is where Jax is from, who also has 3 fingers, by the way. So it is extremely likely that the mysterious Jax is a sand troll. Regardless, the majority of trolls are united under Trundle, the self-proclaimed Troll King, who is fighting in the service of Lysandra, who is a baddie even though she is morally right. So since the majority of the trolls are our enemies, I doubt they will be a playable race. Lastly, let's not forget that this universe also has Yetis. Fun fact, before everything got frozen, the Yeti civilization was very advanced. They even had their own technology based around magic. In fact, Willump, the Yeti Nunu is riding on, is a hologram from the Yeti technology. But then, as the civilization disappeared, the Yetis went a bit more ferocious. So no, they won't be playable either. But that's pretty much it for the races. As I mentioned, there aren't too many different kinds, but that's because Riot is avoiding mimicking other RPGs. That's why there are no dwarves or elves here. Runeterra is simply trying to be unique in every way, and so far, it is working. Now, I also have seen some people asking if Darkin will be playable, to which I have to say, that's like asking if you can play as a god. The Darkin are a corrupted version of the Ascended God Warriors. A single Darkin can annihilate an army of 1,000. In fact, the Darkin known as Aatrox is the only being in existence that managed to kill a celestial god. He stabbed someone wielding the power of the Aspect of War so hard, the Aspect of War died. So no, I don't think Darkin will be playable.
Wonder like what their raid structure is going to be in this game. Like how large the parties are going to be. You know, one thing that I've always said about like WoW, from a personal standpoint, my own personal opinion, I would love to see more like 10-man raiding. Like I get the whole vibe about like being a big epic fight and this and that, but I feel like you get to have more people engaged into the content with, say, their friends, you know, in a more humble group size of like 10 players, and then it also feels like everybody has a bigger role to some degree. Like sure, you can throw a whole bunch of stuff into a raid. The problem with WoW right now is like with mythic raiding, they build their raids around the understanding of like add-ons being there, people having weak auras, people having all of these different assistance tools, whereas I'll be interested to see how they do their raiding in the Riot MMO, simply because like how many add-ons are they going to allow to come on into the game? Are they just going to allow limited API access? Because personally I would almost prefer that. I think to some degree being able to like move around your UI, that's totally cool, but if you're giving yourself like some fucking full screen notification big ass button that you have to click when a mechanic comes up, it's not really like engaging. That's not really fun. Not really you know, you playing the game. You're just like configuring things up to make your life easy, and that just seems like it takes away from the experience personally. So I don't know what sizes they'll go in their raids, but it'd be kind of cool to see more intimate style raiding. Dungeons at 5 totally makes sense, but raiding would be kind of cool if it was in and around that like 10-person mark. I might be on the unpopular opinion, I'm not really sure, but I think big raiding in theory is better for more like world environments. It's just always a challenge. I don't know if anybody has like ran their own guild, but like it's challenging to find 30-40 people on the same page, that their schedules as they get older, and they're, you know, not cookie cutter schedules that work well with everybody, and it's just a challenge, man.
Anyway, with all the races covered, assuming Riot...
Yeah, you could say that 10-person is hardly a raid, but to some degree, like, you can still make it as such. Like, you can still make it where everybody's, like, having to have a big part of the raid, like an influencing part, like, you know, rather than them just sitting there and doing their DPS rotations, they actually have to do mechanics and weave that in and constantly be moving and doing different tasks and this and that. But I get it, like more of the 2030 style is much more like of an epic raid feel, but I don't know, I think in terms of like functionality, I really think 10 men, maybe even 15 would be a really cool spot to sit at.
Is going to use the origin system. This is what the playable races could look like. Humans are versatile, they are everywhere, there is not much to mention there. When it comes to the Vastaya, the common tribes can easily appear in Noxus, Piltover and Bilgewater. These are the regions open to everyone. On the other side, the Vastaya are closely linked to spiritual magic, so you will hardly find one in Demacia, since it is a firmly anti-magic region. And somehow, not many Vastaya were ever mentioned in the Freljord, so Riot doesn't have to force them
Minotaur
there.
is up in the
But
top
then
right.
we have Shurima, Ionia and Targon. Assuming these would be saved for expansions, they could be used to introduce new playable races. Since I doubt all the newcomers remember the names, the Kilash, Lothlan and Otrani are the Lion People, Bird People and Goat People. When it comes to the Yordles, as I mentioned, they can originate from anywhere, but they do avoid the Freljord and Targon because of the harsh climates. And yes, I know there were some prehistoric Yordles in the Freljord, but after it got covered in ice, they disappeared. And lastly, the Minotaurs can be found in Demacia and Noxus. But it does make sense for some of them to flee to the Freljord, and others to travel to Ionia.
It's a
during
full
the
cheat
invasion.
sheet here of
With
kind of
all
what
of
you
this
can see.
said, remember, this is just my decently educated opinion. Since the races are pretty much mixed up all over Runeterra, Riot could also lift the limitations and let every race start in every region. And I would be fine with that. Some story would be wonky, but it wouldn't be anything horrible. Although, I still believe some racial
He's back, eh?
exclusivity helps the feeling of RPGs. So, all of this is still only the first half of the video. If you wanna take a break and do your business without washing your hands, now's your chance.
Okay, guys, poop break, real quick. Go poop. Okay? Even said, nice man on the screen said, go poop now. The poop break. Go get your re-up on the drinks. That mic's not even plugged in. Yo, could you imagine if his mic's not even plugged in and that's just for show? That actually would be hilarious to me.
This program will continue in 5 seconds. Did you wash your hands?
Oh.
Okay, so far we only covered the races, which was definitely still the easy part. The much more difficult part are going to be the classes. This is where Riot is facing a great challenge. Partially it's because there are inherently no wrong answers when it comes to designing a class system. You can really make anything work if you put some thought into it. But more than that, Riot is challenged by the setting itself. League of Legends currently has over 160 different champions. They each have unique abilities and together they can define about 40 different classes. I counted them myself. From these, Riot has to pick
Yeah, dude, this
only
guy's
a
good at
handful
math.
to be playable, which means the majority of the classes won't make it in, and people who love those classes will be disappointed. Thankfully, I'm not a designer, so instead of trying to figure out how to make this work, I'm going to show you all the cool, unique classes this universe has. And again, because region pride is a big part of this universe, you'll see that some of these are tied to specific regions. But not the warrior. That one is different in every single region. So let's start with that. The warriors in this universe provide a unique challenge on top of the already difficult decisions. It's because in every region, the fantasy of a warrior is represented
Arnold.
by something else. In Demacia, it is the Dauntless Vanguard. These are the classic knights in shiny armor pursuing justice. In Noxus, the traditional warrior would be part of the Trifarian Legion, which is a rank you can achieve after killing your best sparring friend in combat. These guys rarely use shields. In Shurima, the classic warrior is the warrior of the Golden Army. These are fighting for the glory of the Shuriman Emperor. In Piltover, you would have the Enforcers. Simply said, it's the cops. People will know these from Arcane.
Yeah.
In a way, the Wardens are the melee warriors of Piltover.
Definitely worth a
But
watch,
then,
Arcane,
in
if
the
you guys haven't
Freljord,
seen it.
Warriors are
on
represented
Netflix.
by the Berserks, either wielding axes or giant blades as they worship the primal god known as the Iron Boar. On Targon, we have the Warriors of Rakor, which are somewhat themed after the classic
Oh, he's wearing
Spartan
pajama
armies.
pants for sure.
Then in Ionia,
That's
the
sick
classic
style.
warrior is known as a Blade Master. with samurai-styled swords that have a rich history in this region. Also, there are the Vuju Blade Masters, which are on a totally different level. The
Like
Vuju
ninjas?
technique is so powerful it was forbidden from using it in combat. The TLDR version of the story is that when Noxus invaded Ionia, Master Yi obliterated entire Noxian legions on his own, before Noxians realized how overpowered he was and they nuked the town where the Vuju Blade Masters were trained. So now there is no more Vuju Blade Masters, just normal Blade Masters. And lastly, the common warrior in Bilgewater would be a brawler. You see, I just named 8 different kinds of warriors. How is Riot going to handle this? I don't know. They could just make one warrior class and then just have the players play out the fantasy while wearing cool armor sets. Or they could make it so that every origin has a different skin of the class. You know, all the abilities would be the same, they would be doing the same numbers, but when a Noxian swings a weapon, there is a bloody trail, and when an Iceborne Berserk swings a weapon, there is a frosty effect. But again,
different graphical changes, sure.
Now I'm just going to show you all the unique and interesting classes from this universe. In Demacia, we have the Mage Seekers. These are the people
where's all
who
the different
hunt down
classes here?
mages. They carry with them a stone disc called the Grey Mark. This is the tool that allows them to absorb magic. So this would be sort of an anti-magic class. There are also a lot of iconic Demacian scouts.
That'd be kind of cool.
Demacia has a lot of
anti-magic class, so just like absorbing magic. That could totally be some sort of support role too.
Stories about theaters and bards. But Demacia also brought spotlight onto the Sentinels. The Sentinels of Light are people dedicated to fighting the undead. Because the undead can't really be killed with normal weapons, they use the relic stones that can be forged into any weapon, be it a crossbow, a gun, a really big gun, or even a sword. Fun fact, in the lore, the Sentinel guns don't have triggers. You have to will it to fire with every fiber of your body. So of course, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP. Lastly, this will be unknown to even the Force, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP.
What does he say?
With his PP. Lastly, this will be unknown to even veteran League players, but Demacia put a really cool twist onto the Paladin class.
You heard it.
You see, in League of Legends,
Need a
when you
PP
play
to shoot
as
those.
Garen, his ultimate is to smite his enemies with a giant holy blade. This made people wonder, is Garen a mage? In Demacia? Actually, no.
What?
In the lore, Garen has never done anything even similar to this. And that's because there is something even cooler happening. Most people in Demacia pray to the aspect of justice, which they call the Winged Protector. That's why Demacia has a lot of angelic statues. Coincidentally, the aspect of justice can also be found in League, its Gale. So what's happening is that when Garen is casting his ultimate, it is not him magically creating a holy blade in the sky. It is actually the aspect of justice answering his call. So even though this universe doesn't really have a paladin class, which would be casting holy spells, this would be a really cool alternative. People who worship the aspect of justice and let her answer their calls. Pretty cool, but now let's move on to Noxus. Noxians are one of the only regions who harvest black powder, so they also have their own mercenaries with functional guns. In Noxus you can also find a lot of demonic cultists, so I would expect a warlock or
There's
a
so much
summoner,
to this, it's
and they
wild.
also have a few renowned assassin guilds. And the most unique of them all, Noxus also has a circle of hemomancers, people who follow Vladimir, a lord who used to be a hostage to the Darkin, and who eventually learned how to use their blood magic. So these people used the very same blood magic that shaped the Darkin. Then in Shurima we may find arcane mages. These
say, that
people
looks
follow
cool.
Zerath, the most powerful mage on Runeterra,
Yes,
whose body has been reduced to nothing
Tell
but
me how
armor
I
and
acquire the
I would
power.
honestly love to see this class in-game,
Yes.
because I love the idea of having an Archon form on cooldown. Shurima also has some prophets who can open up tiny portals into the void and summon tiny void creatures. It would be sort of like Warlock in WoW. You know, use the power of the enemy against themselves. Then there are the Sand Shifters, people who can use the sand.
I really feel like there's something there that he's in spite of.
Then there are the Sand Shifters, people who can use the
Like
sand to create sand mirror images. And we can't forget about the Chronomancers, people who use time magic in a lot of creative, interesting ways. Then in Piltover, riding off of the success of Arcane, people will want to play as a Warden, which is a more elite version of the Enforcers. These would be equipped with sniper rifles and stun grenades. On the crafty side, there are also the Hextech Engineers. These are the people who can use science to allow them to wield magic even if they are not mages. And separate from them, there are also the Artificers. To them, anything from a powerful arm to blade legs should be possible. And down in Zone, I would love to see some kind of an alchemist who's using questionable drugs to help his allies. Next we go into the Freljord. Here we can find...
I love his like deadpan delivery. Man, I'm not gonna lie, like if they actually go as in depth as they could with all of these races and classes and etc., the balancing is gonna be fucking insane. Like the balancing for this will be a headache. I feel like they do have some sort of direction already from like League of Legends and whatnot, and they'd have some idea of what that might look like, but that still feels like the balancing is a nightmare. And I've never really played League of Legends, but I know most games mathematically have a meta as per the patch. So even like League has like what 140 characters or something like that, you know, to make them all quote unquote relatively equal is just an absolute nightmare. So it'll be interesting how they like tackle the complexity of that.
The Draklorn Inquisitors, which are Lissandra's followers with abilities themed around true ice. Essentially,
160 champs in League.
Mages.
Wow.
But perhaps the most iconic for the Freljord would be the Shamans. These worship the animalistic primal gods of the Freljord, and all their abilities mimic the primal gods, be it a bear, a fox, a mammoth, or a boar. Then on Targon we would find a lot of people with celestial powers. You know, calling down stars and such. But there are also the Solari who use the power of the sun to enhance their attacks. They also wear massive plated armor, so this would be the tank class. Or the Lunari who use the power of the moon to stay in the shadows. This would be more of an assassin class. Besides these, there are also a lot of star callers around, and even draconic worshippers. Then in Ionia, besides the Vuju Blademasters, which would be far too overpowered, some people choose to fight without a blade. These would be the monks of Hirana. They channel the power of Ionian dragons to empower their limbs. And don't worry, they are a bit different from the traditional monks. They are far more badass. Think less Bruce Lee and more Dragon Ball. But of course, Ionia is also home to the
I'm listening.
ninjas.
He said
goal is
Dragon
to
Ball.
maintain balance in Ionia. This means that when
I'm
a
into
spirit
it.
starts killing people, the ninjas go out and deal with the spirit. And when people start terrorizing the spirits, the ninjas go out and deal with the people. Most of these are your classic ninjas empowered with spiritual magic. But some
Okay, that
are
sounds pretty
using
damn
the
cool.
forbidden shadow technique.
Ninja with magic.
And while they surely look
Yes.
evil, just like anything in League of Legends, it's not really one-sided. These ninjas are simply using questionable techniques to protect their homeland. And honestly, the Shadow Ninjas are so iconic for Ionia, I really do believe they will be playable. Then we get to Bilgewater. Besides all the things that you could do with pirates and monster hunters, the most iconic class of this place are the priests of Buru. The Buru worship the god of motion called Nagake Boros. While they are priests, they fight with full physical strength, while borrowing power from the god to empower themselves. Usually this means the god spawns tentacles to smack the enemies around, but they also have healing powers, so that would be a really cool support class. In Riot's RPG called Ruined King, you can play as Illaoi, the High Priestess of Nagakeboros, and there you can see all the attacks she can pull off. And this takes us to the last place.
We're thinking about playing that game. What is it called? Ruined King? Something like that. I have to double check, but I might jump into that game.
Ishtal, which will most likely be saved for an expansion. As I mentioned in the last video, Ishtal specializes in only one thing: elemental magic. So if elemental mages become a class...
But he's just like holding a whole marble countertop on his back, no big deal.
And they should. Even in League, elemental dragons are a core mechanic. They would come from Ishtal. But that's it for all the unique classes this universe has to offer. Funnily enough, when I was drafting all these classes, I realized a lot of them fall under specific categories. So going with the skin idea for all the classes wouldn't be too unreasonable. But developing so many artistic variations of the classes would be taxing. So overall, I believe Riot should not care about disappointing some players for not including their favorite class. With so many options, it's going to happen anyway. Instead, pick a couple of classes that simply make sense for you. You know, a Blade Master here, an Arcane Mage there, and just
Man, that guy looks
fun.
sick. What the hell?
For you. You know, a Blade Master
That looks nuts. Look at that blade. That looks cool.
Here, an Arcane Mage there, and just have fun. Having fun during development usually translates into great experiences. And I hope I'm not pressuring anyone by stirring up hype. If anything, I'm just happy that people find these videos interesting. And all I'm doing is presenting information that Riot released over the past 10 years. I mean, I know the video is interesting because Asmon only paused 3 times and he said,
"That's fucking cool."
And
I like it a lot.
And
that's what the fuck? This is actually really cool. I didn't know any of this.
That to me marks a big success. Next time we are going to talk about all the already established raid bosses of this universe. Which
pat on
is
the back.
A very personal topic for me. You know, I am a father, my son is 2 years old. So by the time this MMO comes out, he's going to be just the right age to heal my raids.
Yeah, and farm your materials, buddy. Very good little video here. If you guys have not checked out this guy, I encourage you to do so. I've checked out multiple videos of his already, and he's got a bunch of other great content too. I was kind of skimming his channel a few days back, and he's got a lot of stuff to watch. So definitely recommend checking this guy out, showing him some love, doing all that work. That's probably a ton of legwork that he does for these videos. So thank you very much, Mr. Necrit. Is it that's how you say it? I say everything wrong, so. But that's pretty funny, eh? What do you guys think?